So most of the metaphors and parables in the Bible about like weed and sowing and farming and tilling the soil and being a shepherd and things like that, because that was the society and the culture in which the Bible was revealed and written. Like if the Bible was being revealed today, then you would find metaphors in there about the internet and downloading, like we said Revelation. They might say, God downloaded something in my spirit. We would use different language and metaphors and ideas to convey the same primary principles, but the language and the metaphors, they're all impacted by the society and the culture. And so Jesus in the Bible uses a lot of metaphors about farming and sowing, because that's what everybody knew. And he speaks about the wheat and the chaff, and those two ideas come up quite frequently, going all the way through your Old Testament. Not so are the ungodly, but they are like the chaff which the wind drives away. Or John the Baptist says his winnowing fork is in his hand, but he will gather the wheat into his garner, but the chaff will be burnt up with unquenchable fire. Like this idea of wheat and chaff, it appears all throughout your Bible from the Old to the New. But Jesus says something very particular in here. He says, unless a kernel of wheat is planted in the soil and dies, it remains alone. He says the wheat must be planted in the soil, then it must die. And if it does not, it will remain alone. Remember the parable of the sower? I referenced it earlier. The parable of the sower. The sower went out to sow. And the first example that Jesus gives in the parable of the sower is, as he was walking, some seed fell by the wayside. Hadas, the roadway. What that means is that the seed didn't even make it to the soil. See, the seed has to make it to the soil. It can't just die on the road. Yeah. The seed is called to die, and we're going to talk about what that means for the seed to die, but it has to make it to the soil. So why am I saying that? Because I want you to understand that God has an ordained purpose for your life, but you have to make it to the right environment. Like the soil is the right environment. The seed has to fall and be planted in the soil. If the seed falls by the roadside or on the road, like it does in the parable of the sower, it doesn't do anything. The birds come and pluck it up and fly away with it, which is what Jesus says happens to that kind of seed that falls by the wayside. He said that the seed must be planted in the soil. What that means is that there is an environment. There's a particular environment that God has designed for your growth, for your development, for your progression, for your advancement. Some of us, we stay in relationships that are unfruitful for us, and we're not growing and we're not developing. That's because you're planted in the wrong soil. Like you're in this toxic relationship, or he fine and he look real good in them jeans, and I think he this and he that. Yeah, but you're not growing and you're miserable, and you got you a fine man, but you're miserable. So maybe you're not in the right environment for your growth, for your development, for your progression. And men, we do the same things. She bad, but man, you stressed all the time, and you frustrated and anxious, and maybe you ought to give that fine woman up. And maybe you're in the wrong environment to experience some growth and development and peace in your life. So you have to make it to the soil, the right soil for your growth, for the growth that God has ordained for your life, for your personality, your person. You see, sometimes you have to check the soil you're in. So sometimes you have to. A pastor once told me, he says, we're not thermometers, we're thermostats. He says Christians, we're spiritual thermostats. We're not spiritual thermometers. What is the difference? A thermometer measures the temperature. The thermostat sets it. Thermostat sets it. See, it's not enough for you just walking, ooh, it feels kind of tense in here. You just mean a thermometer. Anybody know that? You walk in the room, we all know it's tense up in here. A thermometer sets into a tense situation. All right, y'all, we got to do something. Like a thermometer, like it picks up on what the temperature is and then adjusts it. And so we have to make sure that we're in the right environment, and if we're not, we need to adjust the environment. And if the environment will not be adjusted, that means that maybe we don't need to be there. Jesus says it must be planted in the soil and die. Now, this confused me, so I began researching this. I said, how does a kernel of wheat die? Google it. Like, how does a kernel of wheat die, Jesus? Like, what is the lesson here? And so what you have to understand is the wheat, and I studied the anatomy of a kernel of wheat. Next week, because this is going to be a 2-week message, I think I'm going to put a slide up there and show you the anatomy of a kernel of wheat. But I studied, I got some nice little graphics of what a kernel of wheat looks like and the different aspects of a kernel of wheat. And one of the things I learned was this: the kernel never dies. What happens is the kernel is surrounded by chaff. The chaff is an organic part of the kernel. It grows with it. It's part of the growth process. And the chaff falls away. So in the Bible, when it speaks about his winnowing fork is in his hand, but he will gather his wheat see, the kernel of wheat, it's surrounded by chaff. Sometimes the chaff is even associated with the stork. But the kernel of wheat is the edible part. It's the thing that's beneficial. Everything else is chaff. And we're going to get into tears later. We might have to do tears next week, but tears is another important concept that Jesus lines up with the wheat. Wheat and tears, wheat and chaff. They're both powerful metaphors, but they both speak to different things. And so the chaff, the chaff is everything that surrounds the edible, beneficial part of the wheat that does not belong there. The difference between chaff and tears, remember Jesus said the tears were sown by the enemy. The man's enemy came in and sowed tares among his field that grew up with the wheat. The difference between chaff and tares is that chaff is an organic part of the life of the wheat. It grows up with the wheat. It's very important. Listen to me now. It grows up with the wheat as an organic part of its life. Nonetheless, Jesus says if that wheat is going to be fruitful, the chaff must break apart and die. Why am I saying that? I want you to listen to me, and I want you to listen to me carefully, because I'm talking to everyone in this room. As you go through life and you grow from season to season, from stage to stage, there are all these beautiful things that develop in your life. The problem is there's a lot of chaff that develops right along with the beautiful things. And it grows up right alongside the beautiful things. And the chaff has to be seasonally sifted and broken apart so that the beneficial, edible part, the good thing that God produced. I'll give you an example. You ready for the example? All the best things in my life, not the best things, all the best growth I've experienced in my life came side by side with my deepest pain. They were side by side. Like all my deepest growth, if there's anything you think is good about me, like, oh, he does this or that, I guarantee you some pain surrounded the process of developing these things. At some point in time, I need to seasonally stop and make sure that I'm allowing the chaff to die. That I'm, while not discarding the kernel of wheat, the good thing that God developed in my life. So you go through a season of life, and for instance, some of the losses in my life have taught me to depend on God. Yes, that's right. Things or people I love, the loss of my freedom, like the loss of my friend group, the loss of whatever the loss of this person or that, all these losses, they were painful. I cried over some of them. They were painful, they hurt. But in the midst of all that pain, I found myself stronger than I ever thought I could be. Not stronger physically, like I could punch a bigger hole in the wall, but stronger like, wow, I can stand up under that kind of pressure. Like I can walk through that kind of pain and not break. Like I don't need a circle of men to stand around. Like I can stand on my own 2 feet and be my own person. You don't determine my identity. I am who God says I am. I can be who I'm going to be, and I don't need anybody to determine that other than God. Like all my deepest wisdom, it came saddled with pain. Now, Jesus kind of refers to that when he speaks about the seed that was sown among thorny soil. So what happens is he says, as the seed produced like all the good plants, he said the thorns grew up with them and choked them out. See, the thorns, like the chaff, are the things that grow up right alongside your good stuff. And if you're not careful, the thorns will choke the life out of the good things that God is producing in your life. And so what happens is, as we're growing and we're developing in the things of God, like God told Israel, I'm going to purify you in the furnace of affliction. The furnace of he says, I'm going to take you through a really painful process. But the process is the thing that's going to be necessary to purify you and to mold you and shape you. But I'm going to do that through a furnace of affliction. Now, at the end of that process, if I have a shaped, restored Israel that can't let go of the pain, that's why we have so many bitter Christians. God has walked us through a painful process, but we can't let go of the pain. So that good thing that God produced in our lives because of the pain, through the pain, it never really does its work in the church because, like, your pain, all the things you went through or you've gone through in life are meant to produce something beneficial. If you don't get anything beneficial from your pain, you're wasting it. Yeah. Don't waste your pain. That stuff hurt. Don't waste it. Like when things happen and you experience pain or hurt, like that's not a freebie the devil get. Like no, own that. Own that. I went through some stuff and it was painful and it hurt and I never want to go through it again in life. But since I've already went through it, let me see what I can get from that. I can't go back and unexperience the bad thing I experienced. So let me see what benefit, what I can get from that. Oh, that man hurt me. I learned not to trust jokers like that. So there's some benefit to the pain. Did it hurt? Yes. Did God want him to do whatever it is he did that caused you pain? No. But did you learn some wisdom? Yes. Well, you know what? Maybe that was the pain that was required for you to learn that kind of wisdom. Like, we're holding on to wrappers and containers. And sometimes we're giving them more importance than the thing that they contained, which was the edible thing that we really wanted. The growth, the new perspective, the wisdom, the insight, the development, the strength, the determination, the tenacity that developed in you. Tenacity, in case anybody, to be tenacious is the quality of being able to hold on to something and not let go. You need that in life if you're going to be successful at anything. A good marriage requires tenacity. So if you ever plan on being married, it's the ability to hold on to something. And no matter how much you're being pulled from it, you hold on to it. It's tenacity. It's tenaciousness. I'm not letting go. See, you develop that in pain. Like it's like Jacob, I would not let you go unless you bless me. Like I'm not letting go. Like, I wouldn't let go of God in my life because I had nothing else. There was nothing else left. And I refused to let go of God no matter how bad I wanted to. No matter how bad I wanted to just drown in this or drown in that or give myself to this or give myself to that. I'd done all those things before and I knew that they weren't life producing. I'm like, God, like I really don't like you right now, but I'm not letting go. I'm just being honest. That's how I felt sometimes. I really don't like the idea of, I'm really not a fan right now, but I'm not letting go. And I'm going to worship you. And I'm going to praise you. And I'm going to stick with you, even though I don't feel like going to church. I don't feel like praying. I don't feel like studying this book. I don't feel like doing any of this stuff right now, but I'm not letting go because I have nothing else. See, but it takes a lot of pain to get somebody to that kind of a place. Does that make sense? But I can't hold on to the pain. I just have to hold on to the place it brought me to, which was a deep intimacy with God. And as I talk to the believers from month to month, I see all the time how deeply we were holding on to husk and chaff and wrappings. What about the kernel of wheat? You haven't said a word about it. You just keep telling me about what the wrapper looked like. I want to encourage everybody to give some thought to your walk and your life. Following Jesus is committing our lives to walking in relationship with the Messiah. It's committing our lives to following Jesus, not just worshiping him. Worshiping him is important. But the thing he asks us more than anything else is follow me. If you go through your Gospels, he says it over and over and over again. It's not that worshiping him is not important, but in his earthly life, it's not the thing that he really ever spoke of. He said, will you follow me? Will you be where I am? Will you commit yourselves to walking alongside me so that where I end up at, you end up at? Will you follow me? This is the question. But following him requires letting some things die. It requires looking at our lives and taking an honest assessment of our lives and saying, you know what? I've developed a lot of good things over here, but I've also developed some resentments along the way. That's the chaff that needs to die in your life. Amen?